Donald Trump is in the news again because
allowing.
Well, because his show, The Apprentice, is starting again in January.
Oh, yeah.
He held a big press conference to see if he was going to allow Miss USA, such a prestigious title, to regain and retain. Miss America is the prestige. Miss USA is a different thing.
Representing America in a bathing suit.
Yes, it's basically.
Well, Rosie O'Donnell's disgusting. I mean, both inside and out. You take a look at her, she's a slob. She talks like a truck driver. Rosie attacked me personally because I was very happy when her talk show failed. The other thing that failed, and this was a real monster, and everybody was suing her, was her magazine. Her magazine called Rosie was a total disaster. So I loved it. I gloat over it. I think it's wonderful because I like to see bad people fail.
This young girl, Tara Connor, how old is she? 21. She went out and she was partying. She's from Kentucky.
She's so cute.
She went to New York and she was hanging out at all the parties, doing what Paris and Lindsay do, you know, dancing, whatever. And so he held a press conference to announce whether or not she was going to retain her crown. Yeah. And then she started to cry.
She did.
So I just want to thank Donald for giving me a second chance. And there he is, hair looping, going, everyone deserves a second chance. And I'm going to give her a second chance.
Well, Rosie talks about moral compass. What moral compass does she have? I mean, just take a look at her. Take a look at that face. I mean, can you imagine her poor girlfriend having to kiss that every night? You can have her. I did something very nice for a very fine young lady. I gave her a second chance. Rosie O'Donnell didn't want me to give her a second chance. Of course, Rosie would like to spend a little time with her, that I can guarantee.
He annoys me on a multitude of levels. He's the moral authority. Left the first wife, had an affair. Left the second wife, had an affair. Had kids both times, but he's the moral compass for 20-year-olds in America. Donald, sit and spin, my friends. I don't enjoy him. No.
We're all a little chubby, but Rosie's just worse than most of us. But it's not the chubbiness. Rosie is a very unattractive person, both inside and out. Rosie's a person that's very lucky to have her girlfriend. And she better be careful or I'll send one of my friends over to pick up her girlfriend. Why would she stay with Rosie if she had another choice?
Say about him. I know you said that his father gave him his money.
It's
I know
true.
that. Well, listen, the fact of the matter is, you say what you want to say, but he's a businessman.
Yeah.
He's a master of branding. There are a lot of kids who've inherited money from their parents, and you can't see anything about it except a car or a house that's defunct.
He inherited a lot of money. Wait a minute. And he's been bankrupt so many times where he didn't have to pay.
People have been bankrupt, but he's come back.
The people beneath him who he owed money to got shorted out of the money, but he got to again, try again and again. And you know what saved him the second time? After his father died, with that money, he paid off all his bankruptcy. This is not a self-made man.
I'll probably sue Rosie because she doesn't tell the facts. As an example, I'm worth many billions of dollars. Now, she said I was bankrupt. I never went bankrupt. So probably I'll sue her because it would be fun. I'd like to take some money out of her fat ass pockets.
He's going to sue me, but he'll be bankrupt by that time, so I won't have to worry. But
she's easy to beat intellectually. If you looked at her performance on The View today, it was a disaster. The View is not a great show to start off with and hasn't been doing very well and had the worst year they've ever had last year. But if you look at her performance on The View today, she was a mess. She was nervous. She was fumbling. She was stumbling. She brought her nice girlfriend in to keep her company. Rosie was an absolute mess today.
I just think that this man is like sort of one of those, snake oil salesmen in Little House on the Prairie. You remember that episode where the guy would come in with a lot of bottles and everybody would be like, ooh, and then he'd leave and little Laura Ingalls would go, Dad, I don't think there's anything in this bottle. Well, you're right, Half-Pint. That man was full of crap.
He called me a snake oil salesman. And, coming from Rosie, that's pretty low because when you look at her and when you see the mind is weak. I don't see it. I don't get it. I never understood. How does she even get on television? I believe Barbara made a terrible mistake putting her on, and I think Barbara's probably paying a big price. If I were running The View, I'd fire Rosie. I mean, I'd look her right in that fat, ugly face of hers. I'd say, Rosie, you're fired.
Frankly, here's my comment to him.
I am officially running for President of the United States, and we are going to make our country great again.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
It was a scene few could imagine just a few hours earlier. Donald Trump, trailing in the polls for much of the campaign, emerging victorious in a presidential result that stunned the nation and the world.
Rosie O'Donnell is still reeling from the presidential election, at least according to her daughter.
She is like out of her mind upset, yes.
Chelsea O'Donnell says the election of Rosie's nemesis, Donald Trump, actually left the TV personality physically ill.
When she learned that Trump was elected president, how did she react? She was very, depressed. She was just, in bed, sleeping.
The one-time television talk show host turned Twitter troll Rosie O'Donnell is having a psychotic breakdown as the inauguration of Donald Trump is now just a week away. She's calling for martial law to be implemented and have the military suspend the Constitution and detain Donald Trump in order to delay the inauguration.
Rosie supports imposing martial law, delaying the inauguration until Trump is cleared of all charges. Rosie, I know you. I don't have a problem with you. But martial law? Are you nuts? Do you even know what martial law is? It's when the military takes over when we're invaded and we're at war. And by the way, Trump isn't charged with anything. And for him to be cleared, there'd have to be a trial. Ain't no trials happening, Rosie, during martial law. And on a personal level, Rosie, you would hate it. There would be curfews and checkpoints. There'd be tanks in the streets. And no, you couldn't call an Uber tank for a quick latte at your local Starbucks. Your tweet is stupid. Since when does the left want the military to take over? And a little primer, Rosie. When they do, people like you, who call for the overthrow of the president, meet a firing squad. And it ain't a happy ending.
Delay the date! Do not swear him in! I have to make it clear that this is not from a Rosie O'Donnell parody account. Online, a lot of times people will obviously start fake accounts. This is from her real, verified Twitter account. She's drinking Keith Olbermann's Kool-Aid, who thinks that we're at war with Russia. She responded to his tweet, "For God's sake, delay the inauguration. Keith, how can we make this happen?"
That they are endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. And whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter and abolish it and to institute new government. That is why we are here.
One of the people who's lost her mind, obviously, is Rosie O'Donnell. She didn't have much of a mind left to lose, sadly, but Rosie O'Donnell tweeted this out. She tweeted out, "So how about this? I promise to give $2 million to Senator Susan Collins and $2 million to Senator Jeff Flake if they vote no. No, I will not kill Americans for the sewer rich." She meant to write super, but she can't type. It's S-U-O-E-R, rich. "DM me, Susan. DM me, Jeff. No bleep. $2 million. Cash. Each." It's like E.E. Cummings for the mentally deficient. So well done there, Rosie O'Donnell. This, by the way, is technically under federal law bribery.
This is not Russia. To Donald Trump and his pathetic band of white, privileged, criminal businessmen, I would like to say to him, "Niet, sir. Niet. 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 No, we won't. We've seen what you have done, sir. We have seen your connections with Russia. The game is over. The internet rules. All media is universal."
So she's openly offering $4 million to Republican senators for them to change their vote, which is bribery under federal law. She's doing that in front of apparently 32,000 likes. So that I guess she must be willing to pay $12 million to the federal government. I said earlier, if President Trump tells Jeff Sessions to initiate a prosecution against Rosie O'Donnell, they will begin carving his face into Rushmore tomorrow.
He lies! He lies! He lies! He lies! He lies!
Rosie O'Donnell attempted to bribe a couple senators in order to get them to vote no on the tax reform bill. Now, this is a really strange story, and there's a lot around it. People on the left are saying, obviously, Rosie O'Donnell is joking, and people on the right are saying, no, she clearly is not joking. So the tweet in question, where Rosie O'Donnell offered $2 million in cash to senators who would vote no on the tax reform bill, happened last night, with Rosie O'Donnell saying, so how about this? I promise to give $2 million to Senator Susan Collins and $2 million to Senator Jeff Flake if they vote no. No, I will not kill Americans for the super rich. DM me Susan, DM me Jeff. No, $2 million cash each. People quickly pointed out that this is bribery, but obviously the people who support Rosie O'Donnell or who oppose tax reform are playing it off like it's just one big joke.
So I tweeted out, half jokingly this morning, lock her up, lock her up. And Rosie O'Donnell got mad and she tweeted back at me, suck my bleep, Ben, which doesn't make sense for a variety of reasons as far as I'm aware. And so I tweeted back at her, you're already a felon, Rosie. Don't be a homophobic sexual harasser too. And then I followed it up with hashtag me too. So that is my A+ troll game right there, gang. That is the troll is strong with me today.
But let's take a look at more of Rosie O'Donnell's tweets and try and determine, was she actually joking? The first response, could this actually work? Rosie, I swear, I will write them a check. Luis Mensch then said, it's bribery. I know you're joking, but you cannot pay lawmakers to vote. We're almost Russia, but not quite yet. How about you help fund their opponents if they vote the wrong way? Pretty sure that's legal. And Rosie responded to this. I disagree. It is obvious there's a price. Corker had one, Collins too. Flake, almost brave. He crawled out backwards. $2 million to any GOP senator who votes no on killing Americans. Millions without health care. My God, have we knows. And I believe she may have been trying to type soul. These are not the only tweets. She has repeatedly tweeted confirming she is serious. There's more tweets. Following down on this post, again, she responds, $2 million cash. Call if you want to negotiate. In an attempt to tweet at Senator Collins, she said, call if you want to negotiate. Do you think your family is proud of you, Senator Collins? Woman, mother, grandmother, sister, daughter, you have betrayed us all. Dear God, ask for forgiveness. Redeem your soul tomorrow. In this Twitter thread, I scrolled down and looked at hundreds of responses, and I counted 9 statements from Rosie O'Donnell, 9, where she reaffirmed that she was willing to give cold, hard cash to senators who voted no on this bill. In fact, she even retweeted someone who said, after Rosie O'Donnell's public attempt to bribe Susan Collins or Jeff Flake with $2 million each, she should probably expect calls from other politicians telling her the proper and usual way to offer bribes quietly and secretly.
Very handsome conservative man stopped me on my way up with his iPhone to ask me with his charming Irish 30-year-old face if George Soros had paid me to come here. And I said, sir, I have never met George Soros, but he seems like a lovely man.
Of all the financial titans and philanthropists of the 20th century, none are more complex or mysterious than George Soros. Like Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, and the Rockefellers, he amassed billions through ruthless business decisions, only to turn around and give away most of his fortune to advance his own personal philosophy. He can move world financial markets simply by voicing an opinion, or destabilize a government by buying and selling its currency. He also pledged more aid last year to help people in Russia than the U.S. government did.
When the Nazis occupied Budapest in 1944, George Soros' father was a successful lawyer. He lived on an island in the Danube and liked to commute to work in a rowboat. But knowing there were problems ahead for the Jews, he decided to split his family up. He bought them forged papers, and he bribed a government official to take 14-year-old George Soros in and swear that he was his Christian godson. But survival carried a heavy price tag. While hundreds of thousands of Hungarian Jews were being shipped off to the death camps, George Soros accompanied his phony godfather on his appointed rounds, confiscating property from the Jews.
These are pictures from 1944 of what happened to George Soros's friends and neighbors.
You're a Hungarian Jew
who escaped the Holocaust by posing as a Christian.
Right.
And you watched lots of people get shipped off to the death camps.
Right. I was 14 years old. And I would say that that's when my character was made.
One day I'd like to share a souvlaki with him.
My understanding is that you went out with this protector of yours who swore that you were his adopted godson.
Yes, yes.
Went out, in fact, and helped in the confiscation of property from the Jews.
That's right. Well, of course, I could be on the other side, or I could be the one from whom the thing is being taken away. But there was no sense that I shouldn't be there, because that was, well, actually, funny way, it's just like in markets, that if I weren't there, of course I wasn't doing it, but somebody else would be taking it away anyhow.